And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our LASL President Program webinar. Today's webinar is called From the Roots, the Importance of Natural Hair Support Groups. And with us today is Nicolette Davis. And before I turn it over to Nicolette, if anyone is watching, if you would like to make any comments or ask any questions, drop them in the chat. In the YouTube, below the YouTube description, drop your questions in the chat, and I will be sure to relay those to Nicolette after she is done talking. And I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Amanda Jones, and I am the Vice President of the Louisiana Association of School Librarians. And we are just so grateful and thankful to Nicolette for being here with us today. And I've got my pen. I'm gonna be taking tons of notes here. So I will now turn it over to Nicolette Davis. She works at the Greenville Springs branch of the East Baton Rouge Parish Public Library. Thank you, Nicolette. And now I'm going to let you do your thing.
Okay, thank you so much, Amanda. I really appreciate that introduction. Again, my name is Nicolette Davis, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm currently a circulation librarian with the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. We're going to be talking about natural hair support groups. So I hope you're in the right place. So the Natural Hair Support Group is a group that I started with the East Baton Rouge Parish Library in 2016. We built community, I like to say one strand at a time. And during the summer of 2021, our group was featured in the American Libraries magazine. And since then, I've gotten a lot of questions, a lot of great feedback, a lot of, can you show me how to do a natural hair support group, specifically in public libraries? So this is my first time speaking to school librarians. So I'm so glad that I'm here with you all today. And so we're just going to jump right into it. So next slide, please. So I just want to start out giving you a little overview of how this webinar will work, the things that I'll talk about. First, I'll start out with an acknowledgement, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. Then we're going to start with my roots, so where we've been, how I started the group, and where we are today. Then I'm going to talk about incorporating a natural hair support group at your school. And first, we're going to talk about the envisioning. Like, where do you see this program fitting within your library? And then I'm going to talk about action. So the actual things that you can do, events that you can plan, programs that you can have in order to make this successful at your school. And then I'm going to highlight some of the events and programs that I've done. So, maybe it can give you some inspiration for your school library. And then I'm going to have about 20, 30 minutes for Q&A. If there's no questions, that's fine. But I just wanted to leave the floor open in case there are questions. So next slide, please. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that I come from a public library background. And certainly tasks for school librarians and public librarians, they do overlap in some way. I did spend some time volunteering at La Belaire Elementary and Bel Air High School in Baton Rouge. And this was several years ago. And so those experiences were enriching. And I got a glimpse into, a small glimpse into what it's like for school librarians. But I cannot speak to the unique challenges that you all face as school librarians. I know sometimes there are these webinars where people come in and they say, well, I know what it's like, or, they try to tell you what you should do without knowing the context. And I really want to speak to that. So I know you all have lived experiences in your day to day roles that I cannot even imagine, like the trials and tribulations of virtual learning, trying to be both a librarian and a teacher, sometimes being a coach or the school photographer, or being the timeout moderator, the IT person, all while trying to make sure you're at your duty post or make sure you check your emails multiple times a day. And, within all of that, maybe squeezing in a lunch. So I know there's a lot that you all juggle. And I hope that you take what resonates with you and just know that it's coming from a good place. And if it means anything at all, I see your work. You all, school librarians, do such great work, and I believe in you all. So, yes. Next slide, please. So first of all, I'm going to start with how I came up with the idea for the Natural Hair Support Group. In the 2010s, there was an increase in Black women going back to natural hair. That means that more women stopped chemically straightening their hair, also known as relaxing the hair. In 2009, there was a documentary called Good Hair, and at the time of its release, it was well received. I will say that today that's changed. However, it was one of the first documentaries that I saw personally that talked about Black hair as well as the process of chemical straighteners and how harmful that they could be. Some people felt that the damage of chemical straightening chemicals, they're very harsh chemicals used to relax the hair. And just figured that it wasn't worth it. And after a lot of time and consideration, I decided to move away from chemical straighteners in 2014. I thought it would be a very easy process, just stop getting it relaxed. However, it wasn't. Natural hair is completely different from straight hair, and I struggled with learning how to care for my hair because I had never dealt with my natural texture. I've been getting relaxers, chemical relaxers, since I was 5 years old. So I took to YouTube. I like to call it YouTube University. And I thought that YouTube would tell me everything I needed to know about natural hair. And that wasn't easy. That wasn't the case. There were so many videos, like there's hundreds and thousands of videos on natural hair and styling and products and tools, and it was just so overwhelming. Also, there were many factors to consider, especially like the humidity in Louisiana, which we all deal with. You walk outside and your hair is sleek and smooth and nice, and then 5 minutes later, it's like poof. So natural hair isn't a one-size-fits-all thing, meaning even though I was watching all these videos, there were certain things that I just felt like it was overwhelming and it didn't fit the things that I needed. So outside of struggling with styling and caring for my hair, I faced some other struggles as well. I graduated from undergrad in 2015, and I was getting ready to look for my first real adult job. And I was very worried because I was still learning how to do my hair. Sometimes it would come out okay, sometimes it would not. And I knew that there was a stigma with natural hair. Some people consider natural hair to be unkempt or wild. Some people even consider it to be militant because natural afros were worn by women a part of the Black Panthers and things like that. And it wasn't just hair. It came with a lot of different, negative connotations. And so while I did land the perfect job, I had to think about my hair. I had to stress over it. And, I knew that there were laws at the time against wearing your natural hair in the workplace. And thankfully, the perfect job that I landed, there weren't any, regulations about hair, but that was definitely a real thing. So in 2016, I became a library technician with the East Baton Rouge Parish Library, and I was tasked with creating programs for adults. And while I wanted to do fun crafts and book clubs and activities, I also wondered if other women had faced the same things that I had faced. Like if they stressed over their hair, if they didn't know how to style it, if they were overwhelmed with YouTube like I was. And, like I said, YouTube University was great, but there's nothing like being in the same room with like-minded people who were coming for the same thing. Like they all had a common goal. Everybody was learning, or everybody wanted to learn, or was willing to learn about natural hair. So I presented the idea to my supervisor, and initially when I pitched it, I thought it was just like, no way they're gonna approve this. But it was without any hesitation. They were all for it. And that's when the Natural Hair Support Group was born. Next slide, please. Our first meeting was on Wednesday, April 16th, 2016, and I didn't think the turnout would be that great. However, we had over 30 people at our first meeting, which is really great for a library program. I was very excited, and I knew that it was something that the community needed. It wasn't just something that I wanted information on. I saw that there was a need for it within the community. After the first meeting, I did receive a good bit of feedback, and I used that time to see what everybody wanted. Like, what did the group want out of this type of program? I decided that we'd meet once a month to discuss different topics that we discussed in our first meeting. So during our first meeting, it was just a general meetup, and everybody kind of either vented or, said what they wanted to learn, and I wrote everything down. And so each month we would meet and talk about a specific topic. And the next few months we had, no less than 25 people attending each of the meetups. In August 2016, if you're from the Baton Rouge area or Livingston area, even part of Ascension, you remember the great tragedy we faced, which is the Great Flood of 2016. It was very devastating because my library flooded. The Greenwell Springs Library did flood. And so I was relocated to another branch, which was the Jones Creek Library. And many of the group participants who live near Greenwell Springs, they flooded as well. And so I thought, they're not going to want to do anything with natural hair. They're repairing their homes. They're, trying to attend to these really important things. But I got a lot of emails saying that they really wanted the group back because it gave them a sense of normalcy. And that made me feel good to know that it was something that they felt was kind of like an outlet to, not dealing with sheetrock, not dealing with insurance adjusters, just coming with another group of women and talking about natural hair. And so I did the group at the Jones Creek Library, and we were able to bring in more people from the Jones Creek community who were interested in the natural hair support group. I realized soon after that the general meetings were good, but I kind of needed to switch it up a little bit. I needed to get more creative to foster engagement, because I felt like we were talking about some of the same things over and over again, and I just wanted more engagement that was more stimulating. So we did things like DIY natural hair products. We did recipe swaps, so like using things like coconut oil or shea butter and mixing them up and trying them on their hair and coming back and like telling the group, how did it work? How did it not work? We did hair product show and tells. We invited licensed hairstylists to come and speak, and other natural hair enthusiasts to come and speak and inspire. In 2017, we hosted an evening of poetry, and we invited poets from the community to speak on not just natural hair, but also self-love and self-acceptance, self-esteem, topics of that nature. And that was very successful. And then, COVID happened, and so we had to move to virtual, which was a little bit of a struggle. But virtual has been the way of meeting lately, and we've been doing virtual meetings ever since. Okay, so next slide, please. So that's a brief overview of the history of the Natural Hair Support Group. Now let's talk about some ways to incorporate it into your library. First of all, I think creating a vision is the most important thing. Lived experience is essential. Have a deep interest in the subject. Assess your community, the things that they need. Get creative, ask for help if you need it. And of course, always remember to have fun and remember your vision. The first step is creating the why. Why do you feel that your students will benefit from having this group? Have you talked to them about it? Have you gauged their interest? If you were to incorporate this into your library, what kind of topics would you talk about? What are the goals? Will you meet monthly? Will you meet, every semester? Or what would that frequency look like? I know with some like high schools and middle schools, they're like club days. So will it be a club? Will it be an after school project or after school group? Think about those kinds of things before actually going into having a group. It's important to establish the why so that you understand why you're doing the group. There are many days when it can be either overwhelming or you feel like you can't, think of ways to engage. But I found that coming back to my mission, coming back to the original goals, it always helps to kind of ground me. If you know anything about like anxiety, like if you're worried, the best thing to do is to ground yourself, breathe, and to, count backwards, things like that to help ground yourself. And I feel like having a mission in place helps you to stay grounded. Um, I think lived experience is essential. Natural hair and all that comes with it, it's pretty personal. So lived experience is important. So when you're starting or you're pitching the idea to even have a natural hair support group, be sure to center the needs of the group. I always come back to my community, even though there are things that I want, to learn about natural hair or that I want to see. I always come back to my community and ask what they want to see because ultimately that's who you're serving. I would say get creative, think outside the box. If you feel like something is, too outside of the box, you can always ask somebody else for like input or insight. And I'm going to get into also some different types of things you can incorporate on the next slide. So these are some ideas so if you do decide that you want to start a natural hair support group, these are some things that you can incorporate into your group. So you can start with a general monthly meetup, which is what I did. I started with a general monthly meetup and we would talk about different topics. And as I mentioned earlier, those were great at first, but then I kind of felt like we were talking about the same things over and over again. While it's a great way to learn the group and to learn the things that they want, there's also other things that you can do as well. A natural hair show is one thing. We did one I believe that was in 2018. And so we had different participants in the group. They styled their hair in the style that they liked the best, the style that they felt most confident in. And we had like some music playing. We had a little runway, and they just walked down and they danced and they modeled their hair. And it wasn't anything, like spectacular or anything just over the top. They just did what they felt comfortable doing and what they felt comfortable wearing. And so after the hair show, after all the models had walked, they told all of because we had the models walk down and then we had the audience. And so they told the audience members, how they styled their hair, the products they used, and we saw everybody in the audience like taking notes and they were seeing styles that they could achieve. So like I was talking about earlier with YouTube, it's good to see, YouTube videos. But at the same time, it's also better to see it in person. Somebody can accomplish the style. So you feel kind of empowered to know that they can do it, I can do it. So that was really fun. We also did a hair product show and tell. There's a million different natural hair products, and not all of them work. And so with the hair product show and tell, we had the participants come in and bring in a product that they felt worked, a product that they liked, a product that tackled humidity. And they would talk about, the pros of each product. And we also had them bring in products that they didn't like. Natural hair products are also very expensive. So like, spending $30 on a hair product that's not going to work. Knowing ahead of time, this didn't work for this person's hair, so it may not work for me. We also had a talk to a hairstylist hour where we had a hairstylist come in, and the hairstylist would give tips on how to maintain healthy hair, give advice on doing different things to your hair. So that was also great. We also did, as I mentioned earlier, DIY hair products. I actually had a student who was at Baton Rouge High, and she started her own natural hair support group there. And at their, I think it was like a field day or something like that, the group had come together and they made their own like natural hair products, and they were able to sell the products. And she said that it was something that the group they really enjoyed, and they were able to make some money for their club. YouTube University, the Natural Hair Support Group, we also came up with our own YouTube channel. And we have like I guess, a playlist of different videos that we like because, like I said, there's so many videos out there that, having a select playlist of maybe 10 videos that people found helpful, that was something that we did. Empowerment hours, just coming together because sometimes it can be hard with, the beauty standards that we have. It could be hard trying to learn your hair or trying to rock your natural hair. Sometimes, you have good days and you have bad days. And just having that empowerment and encouragement from each other was very helpful. We can also connect natural hair with poetry or arts. So, like I said earlier, we had a poetry night where the attendees wrote poems about self acceptance, self esteem, about natural hair, and that was really powerful. Okay, next slide, please. So first of all, I want to say with programs, not everyone will be a success, and that's okay. I know it's cliche, but if you reach one person, one or two people, you've done great. I truly believe in that. So some of the things that helped me along the way to market my program, to make it interesting to patrons, is creating modern flyers using Canva. When I first started, I used Publisher, which is throwback. And those flyers, they did the job, but they just weren't very, I guess they weren't very attractive. But with Canva, I've been able to create better flyers and clean modern designs that really it catches people's eyes as they walk in the library. If you have a library or school newsletter, you can submit it to the newsletter. We have a library newsletter here, and that way it got into the hands of people who they may not come into the library every day, or maybe they don't look at the flyers, but they do grab that newsletter, and so they could see it in there. On social media, it's a wonderful tool to spread the word, of course. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or maybe like on your Google site, if there's a way you can incorporate a Google site dedicated to the group. You can always share on Twitter or on Facebook as well. I've gotten a lot of engagement from Facebook. I also did outreach to local hair salons, places that people would go for hair care. I would put flyers there. I don't know if that's really feasible for school libraries, but perhaps making a connection with a stylist, a hairstylist who may be willing to come and speak about healthy hair, about caring for your hair, things of that nature. And collaborate. Brainstorm with other school librarians and other school librarians who may have incorporated a natural hair support group. What's worked for them and what hasn't worked. I think collaboration is important to brainstorm and to kind of get more ideas about where to go with the group. Next slide, please. At the time when I started the group, there weren't a lot of great images for natural hair, but it's improved a lot since then. But I wanted to have something that was different and representative of the group, so I got one of my associates, one of my colleagues, to create these drawings that you see on the screen. They were custom, and I kind of described the group, and I said I want I want like 4 people that represent, the look of the group, the feel of the group. And so she came up with these drawings for me, and they were great. I used them for all of my flyers. We have like a little TV monitor out front, and I use these drawings as just like a little fun kind of image that's associated with the Natural Hair Support Group. So maybe you can ask your students to come up with a representative logo for the group, and they could maybe even make it like a contest or something like that. That would be great. Okay, next slide, please. Of course, you want to incorporate your library's collection. So there are a lot more books, especially in the last few years, on natural hair. A lot of great picture books and other like nonfiction books about natural hair. Many libraries have maker spaces. Here in this picture, we had the participants. They made these hair combs that they're holding with a 3D printer. And I know like a lot of school libraries, maybe at the high school age, middle school age, have 3D printers. So you can also incorporate making hair combs or even like hair barrettes or something, small that kind of incorporates the Natural Hair Support Group and also utilizing the library's resources, including books and other information as well. So next slide, please. So here I have some pictures of some of the events that we hosted over the years. I mentioned the Natural Hair Show, and it's the picture on the upper right. There's somebody walking down the aisle, and she was modeling her hair. And then at that same meeting, we had a mother-daughter duo. There was the daughter sitting in the front, and the mom was sitting behind. And on the bottom right, excuse me, that was one of my coworkers. She came to perform one of her poetry pieces at our poetry night, and she talked about embracing her natural hair and embracing herself. And her poem was really wonderful. We also have the lady in the pink. She is a licensed hairstylist. So she came to speak to the group. That was a very powerful meeting because we had a teen who came to the meeting, and she's actually in the picture in the gray shirt there. She was just sharing her experiences as being a teenager and trying to navigate natural hair, trying to create styles that the other girls had, and trying to embrace herself, as she was. So that was a very powerful meeting. And during the poetry night, we had some of our regulars on the left side of the screen. They were posing for a picture. And then in the middle, on the upper left side, there's some of our attendees just kind of talking and chatting, and that's something that we would always have after a meeting. Everybody would get together and talk. Nobody was a stranger. It just felt so warm and welcoming and inviting. And hopefully, if you incorporate a natural hair support group into your school, you'll also have this kind of community and build this kind of connections with your students, not just with you as a staff member, as a librarian, but for the students as well to connect and engage with each other with a common interest. So next slide, please. And that's it. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. And I really hope that you all gained something today and were able to have some takeaways and incorporate your own natural hair support groups in your library. If you have any questions, I'm all ears.
We did have one, and it's two-parter, so I'm gonna put it the first part. Okay, so Kelsey said, and Kelsey was just named the 2022 Louisiana School Librarian of the Year, and so I just want to give her a shout out while she's commenting. She says she loves us so much, and then part of her question says she wants to support her elementary, but I'm gonna put the second part of the question. She's pre-K through 6th, so. Would you do anything differently for like littles? Because I don't know how I see. I mean, I see little kids and younger kids in the picture. So
Yeah, and so I would say, like here at our library, we do story times and we talk about natural hair. I was actually going to get with, I feel like I knew this question was coming. So I was going to get with our children's librarian to see what kind of crafts would be, if there's a craft that would be, appropriate for younger elementary school age students. And I didn't get with her because I was out today and she was out, and there was just a conflict with scheduling. But I think story times would be great. There are a lot more books now than there were, even a couple years ago on natural hair, and embracing yourself and loving yourself as you are. I think focusing more so on, I guess, self love instead of like the actual hair products or how to do your hair, because usually their parents are doing the hair. So maybe just that focus on self acceptance as you are, and you don't have to be like everybody else. There's so many children's books that tackle you can be different and be just fine. I think that would be a great way to kind of introduce the topic to students.
and I was thinking about so I was thinking as you were talking, I read Hair Love. I'm middle school, but I still read like the picture books, and so I read Hair Love by Matthew Cherry, and then that film that they did won the Academy Award. So I'm like
Mhm.
showing it to the kids, and it
Yeah.
brought forth so many questions, but I don't know how to answer them, and so I've
Mhm.
been like
Mhm.
furiously writing down like ideas for a club. Like I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Just because mine are middle school, so they like talking about hair and stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, but one of my students told me I needed edge control the other day. So I don't know what that. But I wish I
That
had.
is hilarious.
She's like, you have baby hairs, you need some edge control. And I said, oh, but it sparked a conversation. And I'm like, I wish I
Mhm.
knew what, more ways to help and have this conversation. And so I'm writing down just these ideas of like, just making the 3D combs, partnering with our
Mhm.
public library because I don't have a 3D printer. So we could do that. And then they could print them for us, and having someone come in. I will say I'm very thankful of your program because I have at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library, because I have former students that I'll see on Facebook, and they'll ask for help. Like they'll
Mhm.
have a hair question, and I've actually directed one of my former students who's in her 30s now, and I directed her, and she's done one of your programs. So
That's
I had heard about
awesome.
it years ago. Um,
Mhm.
but if anybody has any questions, y'all drop them in the chat. And I did want to say, let's see, I'm looking through these questions. I think I already put this comment up there. Tammy said it was wonderful. It makes me think about other ways to support our students. And it's, I think of all like the bonding and the fellowship. Like because I would do it middle school, I would do it after school,
Mhm.
probably in
Mhm.
the evenings with
Mhm.
parents and have parents, but the wheels are spinning like, okay, we can sample products, we can make our own products, we can make buttons, so my
Yeah.
wheels are spinning, you know.
Yes. Yeah. And I will say also, we had I actually traveled with the group. So I didn't just do it here. I went to another branch, and we had a mom who, she was a grandmother who came in, and her daughter was biracial, and she had never dealt with naturally textured hair before. And so she was just so thankful because she got so many tips about products from the other ladies and how to style her granddaughter's hair, because she was just completely lost. And that was, there's been so many moving moments that I've had with the group, but it's just one that sticks out to me. It's just that having that support. And she even exchanged numbers with some of the ladies in the group as well. That was awesome.
I mean, this your program is just such a community outreach program. And if we all school librarians, we know public librarians, y'all are like just so awesome at the programming. So I hope some school librarians have been watching this or will watch this and think about incorporating this type of programming into your schools. I did want to say our president Kim Levy Howell, she had commented on here. She said, just thank you. Make sure I thank you for sharing and making this webinar for us, for the school librarians in Louisiana. But we also share outside of the state. So hopefully across the U.S., they'll be learning about your program. But Nicolette, I cannot tell you how thankful I am that you came on to do this for us. We would love to have you back anytime you want to talk about any of your programming, because it was enjoyable. I don't think anybody has any comments. Is there anything else you wanted to say before I closed out?
No, that's all. Thank y'all so much for having me, and thank you for engaging with me and having these wonderful questions. I really, really appreciate your time and attention, and I hope that you all are able to incorporate your own natural hair support groups. I'm always here if you have questions, so definitely feel free to reach out.
So I'm going to end the broadcast, but you stay on, Nicolette. I forgot to tell you that before we started. Stay on real quick. But thank y'all for joining us, and thanks again to Nicolette Davis from the East Baton Rouge Parish Public Library. I hope y'all have a good evening.